Welcome to the flashing lights menu tutorial. I know it's been a while since I had stated that I was going to do an update, and that is because I was waiting until enough things were updated to be able to present it as a whole, because I did not see the need to come up with videos every single month to chase down the update for this game, because this game is updated every single month. This is why. So I wanted to wait until I had an actual drastic showing that the updates are actually happening. So let's get started. This is our main menu part, and as we recall from the last menu the last video, we still have our single player, player online, and we have our settings. Let's start off with the language. This is used to determine how the game is going to be presented when you are playing it. For example, if you are somebody who who is English or speaks English, but also can read and understand German, you would go here and then back, and then everything will display such as this. Or we can go back in here again if you are German and you have the understanding of English and can be able to read it, can swap it over to return it back to English. So this is the language control in which you are able to display stuff in there. As we move on, this is the audio, and our audio is pretty much self-explanatory. Then we have our graphics. Now, even though you can adjust these graphics right here at any time in the game when the game is lagging or you're having issues with the game, you can pull this up on demand and do your adjustments on the fly while in game. The real best way to do is to go into the single player mode and play the game so that you could be able to do your adjustments on the fly to get it to where you're at, instead of going into multiplayer mode, trying to do this and getting frustrated and wanting to quit, because it's really absolutely not necessary. But anyways, this is how you get into the graphics. Controls. So I'm going to touch base with the controls, because this still, for some reason, I don't know if it eludes other players or whatever the issue is, has a tendency to confuse them. Maybe it's because most games that are what people call early access or betas or alphas have a tendency that, I guess, them games, all the control functions are underneath one controller. This is actually a rather advanced setting that actually would be nice on many games, to be honest, where the controller is actually, we have separate tabs for separate functions within the game. So therefore, with these separate functions, we're able to assign our different forms of keys and whatnot that we are doing. Now, in this process, you see that we have keyboard and mouse in our controller. The assigned controllers that we can have allows us to assign a control to that function. So for I have for the keyboard to accept the call out is here, but on my steering car controller, I use R2 because it's convenient for me. But I can hit either or. Neither one of these conflict with each other. This also goes for the map. Now, where it says here character, as you can see, there is no assignment for the controller. It is all keyboard and mouse. However, though, you must keep in mind that you can customize the assignments of what you're doing here. And it seems like this eludes people for some reason. I'm not exactly sure how. I use mouse arrow keys. I do not use the WASD keys. I work off of the right side of the keyboard. So therefore, most of my keys are customized for the way I do things. So when some players will have a tendency to ask me, well, what key does what? And I keep telling them to look in here and find that action that you're trying to do and see which key that is. Because I've customized everything. So when I say I don't know, I'm not being a jerk or anything. As you can see plainly right here, I actually do not have the same functions as what is used for the default on many of these different kind of settings. Some stuff you can see may have it, and then other stuff does not. Or there's an addition to it. And these additions and changes that I do, I use the most. So I cannot go up there and just tell you what key does what. Even in the vehicles, there are still leftover functions that were originally assigned when I was first using this a long time ago. And there are other functions that are attached here that were put up here when these functions became available, such as for the use of the tow truck. Because my car controller can only handle so many functions. Because you cannot have duplicates like triangle, 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 because then when you hit the triangle, all these other functions are conflicting with each other, trying to do the same thing. And there's no point me having the mouse do anything. The wheel controls the car going right and left, as well as the brake speed. So there's nothing here to use there. And there's no point me using the keyboard because I have this thing. So if you are busy working off of this gamepad, even though that I have it blank, but some people use it. I don't use this here. I use this for a motocross game. But I have deleted all its functions in here that automatically set because I use this for a different game, not for this game. And I'm not really good with these gamepads because they're really nothing to me. I've dealt with computers all my life in games. So for the longest time, like what? Yeah, like forever as far as I'm concerned. So I'm used to the keyboard, the mouse, or joysticks. So I didn't have console games where I could be able to use the pad and get accustomed to it. So therefore everything is disabled on it. There's nothing here. It's been removed. So therefore there will be no conflict with this G29 whatsoever. The Blueberry is nothing more than a splitter that I use for my American Truck Simulator and European Truck Simulator game, but it's mounted, or it's already pre-mounted on my shifter. So everything's all plugged in. I have a computer with multi-USB ports. Everybody's already plugged in and set. So stuff that I'm not using in this game are not going to be assigned in any function, character, or other. So when you are going through this, and if you have multiple stuff like this, you need to look to make sure that there's nothing conflicting over each other when you are running into problems. Because like I saw somewhere, somebody was saying that they're driving down the street and the car keeps pulling to one side. Well, there could be reasons for that. The person is not very elaborate, so I don't know if they're just complaining to complain or there is a problem that is there. When you have, let's say, the mouse is assigned to this, and you have the controller assigned to this, because it will be, even though that you are using this, and this is sitting, if it is moving, shaking, or doing anything whatsoever, even if it's a little bit, it will always conflict with the controller here that's being used. So therefore, you're trying to go straight, and it's pulling you to the left or right because it's moving. And this creates a problem. So you have to remove it. And to remove, reassign, or cancel anything, you click on that option and then you hit replace, remove, or cancel and select one of these. That is how that's done. Like steer left. See that? Left mouse button. Well, that we all know that's not happening. Or remove. So it's really not that complicated. So when you look in here, you can assign what you want to make it work. It is completely customized. That is why there are basic presets, and you have your default settings. If you are hooked up with more than multiple controllers for different other purposes for different games because you fly. In my case, this actually was the original steering for the car. So you either fly, you're using a splitter, you using gamepad. These all function off of something. Other games, this is what maybe you're using for the primary version for this game, and you got to make sure that these others are not active if you are not using them in this game. Because this is important, because people will be like, yeah, calibrated sensitivity, I still can't get it to work right. And it could be something as simple as both another controller sharing the same function as that one. Like this could be found sharing the same function as this. And then over here, and then I got the mouse also sharing this. So I have this controller and that controller both sharing the same function. And all this assignment's going to do is allow me to assign a particular controller so that I can be able to do stuff here with it. So if I assign this one to the same functions as this one, add this one, and put these on the same functions, then what happens is while I'm busy going, no matter what I do, let's say I'm driving this, if this falls over and buttons and stuff are hit, or the steering stick gets hit, the car is going to respond to that and fight against this. In the meantime, I got this mouse sliding over, and this thing here is creating a conflict on it. Sorry about that. Creates a conflict on it. In the meantime, the joystick, the cat ran over and hit the stupid thing, which causes the car to go pull hard right, and you got all this chaos going on because you have a dozen pieces of equipment that could be assigned to the same function that you don't want assigned to. So therefore, if you are using this, then you remove all these from the list. That's all there is to it. So that they're not crossing over each other and creating those conflicts. So sometimes you got to take a look and see what you got connected. Just because this is selected and I hit done, if this is also assigned to the wheel, I'm still going to have a problem because the assigned controller allows me to gain access to these tabs so I can set these up. That's all this does. So it's not allowing me to select a single controller that will be permanently used in here. This is the calibration function and what I could be able to do with whatever controller I am working with. Now, sensitivity is important because you have to deal with the, like if you're using, let's say you have a driving game and you are using the G29. So you decide to try it in this game. If you don't adjust and test the sensitivity of your steering, the car will drive like it's completely out of control because the steering wheel is very highly sensitive. So it doesn't take much to turn that wheel and put the car into the wall. It takes very, very little. So, okay, since we are here, we'll just go and touch this. Yes, this is a car controller. For those of you that have seen me driving around within the game and think how impressive it is that I can control the car so well, is not because I'm an excellent driver, it is because I'm using this. Now, for those of you who have this or other car controller types of different types of models, before everybody gets excited, runs up there and starts connecting stuff, alright, just understand this. I had plugged this in for a test to see what it would do. That is how I came across and found out that the game not only recognizes it, but will use it. So just because I got this model to work here doesn't mean that all models will work. So this is something to keep in mind. The other thing is that when you're using a car controller, which may be also a conflict issue with the gamepad, you have to set this from auto to automatic, to manual. Because when this is an automatic, this actually works fine when you're using the keyboard. Because there's nothing analog about pushing the arrow button, directional keys. But when you come here, that kind of seems to change, because you may have to hold down that accelerator or hit the accelerator twice, and hopefully maybe the vehicle will move. I had trouble trying to get the vehicle to move doing this, and it was even stuck in reverse, and no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get the car to do what I needed it to do. I actually assigned it to the page up, page down, except to go forward, I have to hit the button once to go forward, and then to go in reverse, I got to hit the button twice to go back, because if I hit it once, it puts me in neutral because I'm already in first gear. Now, some people may find, well, that's odd. That should be like shift. This is my understanding, the equivalent to shifting a car from park into reverse or drive. But you're doing it manually. Because, after all, the vehicles in the games do not use stick being used by the municipal departments. So, it's not that kind of game. And therefore, you will probably need a separate function to allow you to be able to shift your vehicles, especially if you are using a vehicle that uses the analog accelerator and brake system. Now, I use the shifter, but it's actually kind of funny because, like, if I want to go into reverse, I have to take it from its neutral part, shift it in to shift 3, but I got to pull it back into its neutral point in order for it to register that the car is in reverse. And I have to do that same thing to by shifting in the 4 and back into neutral to get it into neutral, and then I got to do it again to get it into drive, because the stick always has to stay within the neutral slot of the shifter. I cannot just put it into the gear slot and then away I go. It doesn't work that way. I got to actually bump it in and then pull it back out in order for it to register, because it's a temporary intermit, and then when you put the shifter in there, it doesn't work temporary like that. So it sounds a little bit confusing when I'm explaining it, but I'm so used to it I don't even think about it, so my shifting is actually really quick. But I'm used to it. That is the importance of going into single player mode and fine-tuning all your settings first, or become familiar with the game in a manner in which you think you could be able to have no problems working this thing in multiplayer mode, versus being new or not having settings set right and you jump right into multiplayer and begin playing it, and then things are not working out for you and you get frustrated, so you get mad and then you jump out of the whole game and you're through with it with the rest of your life, and you're screaming on the forums about all the problems that the game is making your life miserable and why. Now you are an alcoholic. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Single player and multiplayer are modes. One turns the port on so that you can join a multiplayer session. The other one has the port off so that you can play in the single player mode. Your points, keyboard settings, and vehicles are completely redundant to whether you are single player or multiplayer. So all you people rushing and knocking and creating enemies in the game board because you got to get that call first before anybody else because you want to have the highest points, you've been wasting your time, because somebody can go in a single player game and rack up more points in a month and then come into multiplayer with an overbounding of points that nobody can keep up with, because those are modes. So what you set here and fine tune here in single player is going to respond no different in multiplayer. It's just a mode. That also goes for setting your cards up. So if you're running with something like this for a different game and you're not sure if it's going to work, or you have other card controllers that you bought for other games you want to try, or having a problem trying to get your gamepad sorted out, you go into the single player mode and then do your fine-tune adjustments and get things the way you want it so that you don't have to worry about it later. I mean, I think that's pretty much simple. I'm not exactly sure why some people find that complicated. It's a really, really simple thing. That's why you can't ask me what is the default key for what, because I don't know. Because this is why I don't know. I had went through the trouble to set my stuff up to work for me in the manner that it does. That's why. So but on the one note, I do want to point out, because there are those who that even in my own list have this game also as American Truck Simulator, and we'll probably have something like this or equal or whatever the deal is. So if they do, I'm pretty sure there are other players out there that do too. So let me catch you at the pass before you go running to go plug this stuff up, or already plugged, start setting it up to use. As you know, that controllers like these use force feedback. The game, when you have the start your computer and the computer starts up, as you know, if you're like me who has it pre-plugged up, the steering wheel is seized, so the stiffness is very high when you try to move it. You have to go into one of your driving simulator games like ATS to break the force feedback loose. This game is not set up to chase down force feedback across the board with other ranges of different controllers so that you can be able to have the force feedback function. So the fact that it can even recognize the car controller as a legit steering device is outstanding, considering this one here is for PlayStation. Now, besides it recognizing this joystick, which was developed and made way before flashing lights, this Blueberry, which is strictly had always been a splitter for a completely different game, and I had the gamepad when it first came out before this game was ever brought to me. So really, that just shows you when when they say unpolished most games are with controls, that just shows you how well advanced setup these controls are. You even recognize this old stuff that has been on the market for a while. So, anyways, what I have to do is I have to go into ATS, start my profile up to break the wheel loose so it is free moving. And then I exit the game, come in here so I can be able to steer it. Now, granted, Microsoft has actually taken into consideration that through all the problematic and frustrating issues in dealing with Windows 10 that players have gotten tired of, and other people as well, they had, and probably the Windows 8 users also sick of it, made their complaints pretty much loud and clear that Microsoft has put 7 and 8 back online again by the use of the Edge. And there are players that are reverting back to their one or the other that is their favorite OS to play on, that they had the least or no problems with. So when you are if you're one of those players, when you are in Windows 7 and you break it loose with the other game first before coming in here, Windows 7, for some reason, there is still a slight form of stiffness. It is not much, but the resistance is still there. So that's just a heads up on that. If you're in 10 and you break loose the stiffness, once that happens and you exit that game, it's free play. I mean, it freewheels a lot. So there's no kind of feedback whatsoever. So when you're in there, you always got to make sure between the two to check your steering sensitivity so that you're not driving an out of control vehicle. Because as you can see, mine is not even fully to the right. That actually was one of my problems. If you have something else of equal, keep that in mind. You will need to try it out. You need to experiment it and to see how it is working for you. For you people with the gamepad, same thing. When you're having problems with your steering, yes, you could do calibration, but sensitivity is everything when you are using this. Because if you're steering and your car is driving and putting you into the wall all the time, and you left this all the way over here to the right, the problem could be is that this has to be moved back over here around this area to ease your steering so it is not so aggressive that it constantly puts you out of control just because you bumped it. So when you're done setting up the controls in the manner that you like it, you just simply hit this and then you're out. So that's what you do when you're dealing with the controls. When you're going back and you really need to go into the controls and look at everything that's going on with them. And it may be applicable to go into single player to do all your fine tuning. Because this is really single player, besides playing by yourself, is also the best place to fine tune your stuff to work the way you want it, as well as become familiar with certain things within the game that you're not familiar with, such as trucks, police cars, depending on what it is, what role you choose to play, which one you like to play the most, or whatever it is you want to be versatile in. Because like you're part of one of these police clans, they need a police tow truck driver, and you like to use the tow truck driver, but when you do the multiplayer game, you're a complete epic failure in it. You would go into the single player and then start your practice to learn how to use the tow truck to make yourself better. That way you don't have to worry about getting frustrated. Because I get new players inside the server that runs into issues within the game because they're trying to get it. And they're always, they're good. They always apologize. But because I run open servers, I don't nitpick every single thing that doesn't seem perfect. I let players play the roles they choose to play. They can role play the roles they can choose to play. They can choose to play any function within the game. But what they cannot do is be rude to other players, much less myself, or turn the server toxic. I will not have it. That is the quickest way to get banned for the rest of the night out of my server. I don't punt or kick people out because sometimes the server does that, and players that play in my server, because usually it's loaded, knows that I don't punt or kick people out. So if they get knocked out, it's a disconnect. It isn't because I punt them out. Because my server is fully open and I'm not going to punt somebody out because they got the wrong color lights or there's not enough personnel for this or that and they don't want to shift out. It's not like that. So therefore, when you're learning stuff or you're trying to configure stuff to make so that your game can work the best, this is really the best place to do it. Because like I said, your points and stuff, that don't mean anything unless you're fighting with points with your, what they call clan. Not exactly sure why it's that, but okay. So because when I hear clan, I think of warfare, and that's not this kind of game. That's why. But this is really the best place to conduct your test so that you can go into here and be able to know that you are already set up the way you want, so it's nothing. Because that's what I've always done. Now we go in here, we go into single player, and as you see, we have changes now. We can decipher the maximum amount of vehicles that we can have within this game. We can also decipher the maximum amount of pedestrians. Now I don't really know what those numbers are. I don't know, let's try 20. I guess you can have 20 vehicles. Now, I guess the maximum is 20 vehicles, so if you want a traffic jam, that's the way to go. Which this is probably going to be the same. Nope, 12 pedestrians. So if you want to load up your map with all this craziness, there you go. But so you can change those. You can change your parking density from low, medium, high, or have it off. You can choose day or night. You can choose your fuel consumption to be low, medium, high, or off. I usually will always have it at medium because it's not a big deal to drive the vehicle up to the fuel station and get fuel in the vehicle, which I will cover that in the other tutorials that are updated tutorials for this game. Because I remember a couple times there were some people who were having problems and didn't understand they had plenty of fuel and they assumed they were empty. And I will show you where it is that you need to look. So, anyways, if I'm going to run like maximum traffic for a night shift, you're pretty much looking at something like this. And if I'm doing this same thing on the online server, this is pretty much how it's going to look. So to show how that is, so we're going to choose our selection. So we go, before I go any further, just for a short thing, you people that have this, alright, you can come in here and change that out by punching in your own name. By simply highlighting it, hitting enter, and doing it. If you're one of those guys who are using that to hide behind so you could troll people, you're wasting your time because player IDs now show up on the map. And not only do they show up on the map, but they also show up in the ID list. So you can now be tracked by your ID number just on the mini-map by itself. So when you troll somebody and they're like, well, this player so-and-so ID number this is hit me, and you have one of these host players that will not tolerate troll behavior, will punt or ban you. So if you're using that to hide behind, you're wasting your time. If you do not know about it, yeah, you can change your name to whatever it is you choose to. And here we can select to find games, and we got some players that are here. You have, I guess it's statewide role play, so I'm assuming that this is used for all functions, because there are some servers in which they are now starting to do that. This is another role-playing server which running is night shift. So we're going to quickly join this, see if I can join this real fast, so I can show you what I was talking about with ID. So here we are, we're in the game, and you can see there's what I was talking about, 2001, 1001. They show up there for the players that are inside the game. So as you can see, that no matter what name that they are using, there is a tag name that is attached to that. And our host player is Unit 88. So that's what I meant by that. That's what I meant that by that you would have the numbers, so when you're using player to hide around stuff, you're not hiding from anybody. EMT008 is shouting out hello, and Unit 88 is also shouting out. So as you can see, they're changing in different between players and whatnot and how they do stuff. So yes, we are currently in a functional multiplayer game. And that is why I stated, when you decide that you want to troll, you're not going to be able to hide, because numbers are now attached to the little dots, and you can now be tracked through here and via over here as well. So keep that in mind. If you don't know how to change out your player name, then that's what you do to change it out. So I'm going to now exit this part of the portion of the game. Now, when you go in to create a server, you can be able to change that game's name. I'm not going to put it open Night Shift server because I'm going to lock it out because I'm doing this tutorial, and players that recognize that title, it would not be fair for me to jump in, because then I have to stop this so that they can be able to play. I just can't be rude like that. It's not my nature. So then we put in our password. I currently have been running at 10 players. So we're going to do the day shift, so traffic is out, people is out, everybody doing stuff. We have a low parking density because there are lots of people on the road. Since it's daytime, we have this, and then we go to our fuel consumption, and then we go and we create our game. And there we go. We are now in the server within our game as characters. As we roll out here, we will take a look, and like I said before, even in the multiplayer server, we will have ourselves our traffic that will be driving around, and then we got our people there doing stuff. So there are plenty of ways for people to role play or do whatever it is they're doing. See, here comes a car. There he is turning. So but anyways, I'm pretty sure this is going to cover to what's needed for here for our controls. And this concludes how the usages of the menu of the updated version of flashing lights. I will not. There will be no need for me to put out any other further videos for the updated progression. So this is actually the final of it, because as you can see, there have been a lot of major changes that have been done within this game that is just too hard to keep up. And like I said, the developer updates this game every month. So I hope anything in this video helps you out. Thank you and have a good day.